Can you actually sell vintage on Etsy? Quite often I get asked specifically, how is it possible to sell vintage on Etsy? How is it possible to be competitive when I simply can't have a bestseller because every one of my items is unique? So today I'm going to cover why that's not such a big deal as you think, and I'm even going to show you some real world examples of vintage sellers who are crushing it with the sales, and I'm going to hopefully give a little help with an example from two real-world Etsy shops to see if we can help them out crush it with the sales on Etsy. So first of all, let's cover that whole can't sell on Etsy because you can't get a bestseller. Of course, bestsellers are awesome things. These are listings that are so popular that they sell, relist and sell again, and that sends a fantastic boost to the Etsy algorithm. But is it the be-all and end-all? Can you not sell unique items on Etsy? Well, actually Etsy covered this in the past. In their article, Your Search Questions Answered, the question was, we talked about the listing quality score in the Ultimate Guide, and if you haven't seen that article, you absolutely have to read it. It's like the Bible, the holy grail for Etsy sellers. As a reminder, this is a score created for listings based on how well that listing has converted. But what does this mean for vintage sellers? So the answer from the Etsy experts was, when determining a quality score, we look at things like past shopper behavior to predict how likely the shoppers are to purchase listings from your shop in the future. So if you're a seller of vintage items and you're regularly creating new one-of-a-kind listings, the Etsy search looks at how popular listings from both your shop and similar shops have been in the past to predict how popular they might be with buyers in the future. So this suggests to me two really important things. Firstly, authority. For all of us, whether we sell vintage or not, Etsy is seeming to give our shop some authority on keywords we do well for. So this is a reason why having a recognized niche is a good thing. Etsy really understands that you're a good shop for Hummel figurines. So when you list another Hummel figurine, Etsy is able to say, yes, I know this shop is good for this, so I'm going to show them a little bit more to potential customers. Basically, your shop is getting known to Etsy as a good bet for a customer searching for specific things that are similar to the specific things that you've made and sold in the past. And the second thing here is telling us that keyword research is important. As Etsy is looking at not just your shop, but how other shops have done when being shown for this keyword, then if you're actually able to find the terms that buyers are actually searching for, rather than just random keywords that you think will work, then Etsy is going to have more data that if an item is found in search for these keywords, then it's more likely to sell. So these keywords are good keywords. So basically we have to make sure that the keywords we're using are the ones that shoppers are actually looking for. What might happen with our competition that's selling a little bit, they might have not optimized their titles and tags for a certain keyword. It's just kind of in there, but it did really well when Etsy showed them for that. So Etsy knows that keyword's a good one. So if your listings are better optimized for that keyword, then it's got a real good chance of showing you as well for that keyword. Even if it is a little bit competitive, check and see how well optimized your competition are. So let's have a look at actual vintage sellers on Etsy. I can find the top vintage sellers from my eRank account. Who knows what is a vintage seller with 200,000 sales? Wow. And when I look, I can totally instantly see what their shop is about. They are vintage jewelry supplies, especially cabochons. I bet they're a super great authority for that kind of vintage cabochon. Etsy knows what they're like, understands the type of customers that are going to like their items, knows who to show their items to. And also they do have the benefit that it's low cost and easy to build a pretty big inventory. And craft supplies is a good thing too. So they're hitting not just in vintage, but they're hitting in two different categories. And when I jump into their tag report, I can see that they have the same tags used many times across their listings. It's not all identical. They don't have all their eggs in one basket, but making sure that you're repeating good superstar, really well working for you tags really does tell Etsy what your shop is all about. So Etsy has a whole lot of confidence if buyers have bought vintage cabochons from this shop in the past. Even though when these items are sold, you aren't likely to be able to relist that very item. If they put up another vintage cabochon that's kind of similar, Etsy will understand and in the future will show it in a similar place. Now we've looked at one of the big guys. Two of my crafty clan actually are trying to sell vintage and kindly let me have a look in their shops. Now before I start, don't bother trying to spam my comments with your shop name. YouTube will delete your comments before I even see them. I am asked all the time to look at people's shops and I just don't have time for that. However, active members of my crafty clan, if I can help them and it fits in to be able to help you guys with a decent video, then I might occasionally look into some of my crafty clan's shops as an example and hopefully to give them a bit of help for the support that they're doing. So firstly, we can have a look at New to You by Amanda, and just a quick look at that shop. The first thing that hits me is the banner. It's beautiful, but it's not really inspired. A big red flower tells me absolutely nothing about you as a vintage shop. But what is really good is the number of sales and also that wee button that's saying you've got a number of 5-star reviews in the past 7 days. That is a super good metric that your shop is doing well, and Etsy will very much appreciate that. Your announcement, I feel, could be a little bit better. Unique vintage, tell me a little bit more about your niche. I like further down when you're talking about evoking memories of childhood. This talks about a certain period, depending on the age of your buyers. But in general, when I think of vintage as evoking memories of childhood, and when I look at your shop, I would be thinking perhaps mid-century, kitsch, or who knows, if your buyers are perhaps not as old as that, then even 80s. But be more specific about what your niche is. So looking at your items, I think I'm right with the kind of mid-century vibe here. I'm not an expert on vintage at any case, but I would say absolutely take that theme and run with it. The people that come to your shop are the people that are going to have good memories of that mid-century time. So double down, use it in your tags, make a big deal of that's what your shop's about, and make sure when you're buying in future you're thinking of targeting towards that kind of person. But also run with that nostalgia in your images, run with that feeling in your shop, especially your banner. You have a lot of sales, so you know what kind of items were popular. You can feature that a little more strongly. And I have no way of knowing exactly what you've sold, but when I look into your reviews, salt and pepper shakers look pretty high up there. Try a banner focusing on them. They're fairly cheap, I imagine easy to get hold of, and can be adorable. And also have a few in your featured items. The red glass is lovely, it adds a pop, but it's not really what people have been buying. So let's snoop on you in E-Rank. You really could double down on some more keywords here. The mid-century modern, although it's high competition, this is an evergreen search term. It has lots of people searching for it all the time. And when we look at the keyword tool, it's also a keyword that is worldwide searched for. This is a very good tip for people that are selling things like vintage and supplies. Other people in the world might not be able to get hold of things that are common in your country, but might evoke memories of their home world if they've moved away, or just be super cute things that they literally can't get where they live. With the amount of vintage things you can buy and the reasonable rate that you're selling, you could really become an authority for a keyword like that, whether it's mid-century modern, mid-century, kitsch, whatever you feel, you could be an authority for them. But you do have a lovely shop there, and I think it's going to continue to do well. And second, we have Ginger's shop. Firstly, no banner and no real shop image that shows your shop. Get branding there. I know some people don't like the idea of a banner because then you see more of your items when people search, but it's a great way to really set the theme of your shop. And then under your title, we're saying a little vintage, some kitsch, a whole lot of etc, etc. Use that area for keywords. This is what's going to pop up when you're being searched in other places. So think of the keywords, and that headline there is not really telling me anything much about your shop. A whole lot of etc. that tells me you don't really have a niche. And if I look, 40% of your shop is craft supplies, and it's not vintage craft supplies. And in your feedback, it looks like the majority of your sales are these unique stitch markers. Ginger, your customers have spoken. I think it's clear. Sometimes we start out wanting to sell a whole range of things, but Etsy have told us that this authority thing is important. They have told us they're looking at what's selling in your shop to know what to rank you for. And so if certain things start to really, really sell, and it's something you can get more of, I think totally your shop is these gorgeous stitch markers, it's some wool. This shop is not a vintage shop. I don't think these stitch markers are vintage. If they are, just totally ignore me. But sometimes if we want to be sellers, then we have to listen to what the customers are wanting to buy instead of just trying to sell everything that we want. For the vintage stuff, you could look at making another shop on Etsy, but I think you've got at least 2 already, so that is super hard work. I would probably look at flogging them off on eBay or giving them away as gifts to family and friends. I think the craft supply shop is a way better idea, as I know that your main shop is the knitted crocheted hats, so it ties in with your brand. That is who you are. I hope that helps a little bit. But in summary, yes, vintage sellers can sell on Etsy, but the ones that do best have a recognised niche. I've seen some gorgeous shops. I've seen shops that sell nothing but the blue and white willow pattern vintage Chinese things. I've seen shops that sell nothing but pin-up kitsch items. I've seen shops that sell nothing but vintage superhero comic books. Find your niche, and then it's much easier to find your tribe, and then it's much easier to become an authority.